I'm not able to reconcile my thoughts. There were just too many light bulb moments going off. You know, and so you can actually catch the replay on YouTube. So for those of us, and I believe that should be every one of us, we need to listen to these things over and over again and juice it out for our individual lives and businesses and careers. Our next speaker is Olajumoke Adenowo. Woohoo! She's a prominent architect and philanthropist, described as Africa's Starchitect in a 2014 interview with CNN. Born in 1968, Olajumoke enrolled to study architecture in the University of Ife at the age of 14. And she also gained her master's degree in architecture from the same university. Olajumoke Adenowo's architecture portfolio includes a host of multinational and Nigerian clients, including Coca-Cola, L'Oreal, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and a bunch of other players in the financial services and pharmaceuticals. In 2018, she was recognized by the Royal British Institute of British Architects, RIBA, as one of the most inspirational women in architecture today. She's also the recipient of the Cambridge African Society Award and has been recognized as one of the top 100 most influential Nigerians. She's a philanthropist and founder of Awesome Treasures, an intercontinental philanthropic foundation recognized by the United Nations with a mission to raise 1,000 leaders by 2030, working with women and youth. She's an alumnus of a number of prestigious institutions, including Harvard Business School, the Yale School of Management, the IASC Business School, University of Navarra, Barcelona, and the Lagos Business School Chief Executive Program. Just before I bring her up, we will play a video, and I should also announce that for those of us who have been in our online audience, you're not excluded from the Q&A that would happen right after the last speaker, which is Mr. Leke Alder. And the link to send your questions is bit.ly, so that's bit.ly/questions_the platform engine. I'll just take that quickly again. It is bit.ly/questions_the platform ng. That's also the link to send your questions, even if you're here. So I'll just turn the stage over right now to Mrs. Olajumoke as she starts up her session with a video. Thank you.
Olajumoke Adenowo is a multiple award-winning architect with over 3 decades of industry experience. Described as Africa's Starchitect and Trailblazer when profiled by CNN and BBC. She is one of Africa's most outstanding architects and the only female in this elite category, christened the face of architecture in Nigeria by The Guardian. She has been featured in the world's foremost architectural journal, Architectural Record, and Forbes Women and Fortune magazine. In 2013, she was instituted into the Hall of Fame of Personalities of Black Ancestry by the University of West England, Bristol, among other global personalities of Black heritage. She is a quintessential polymath, chartered architect, academic laureate, philanthropist, entrepreneur, chartered arbitrator, author, and radio show host. She is also a member of the International Coalition of Apostolic Leaders. After gaining admission into Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, at the age of 14, she acquired the first distinction in Master of Science in Architecture in the university's history. She is also an alumnus of several institutions, including the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, the Yale School of Management, MIT, the IESE Business School, amongst other professional affiliations. She is a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. Starting her career at Femi Majekudumi Associates, where she had the privilege of designing the Federal Ministry of Finance headquarters in Abuja. In 1994, she founded her own multi-award-winning architecture firm, AD Consulting, which specializes also in master planning of eco-sensitive developments. AD Consulting is Nigeria's most internationally awarded firm. She has been the principal partner from inception to date. In 1999, Her passion for raising transformational leaders led her to establish the faith-based philanthropy Awesome Treasures Foundation. Recognized by the United Nations and affiliated to the Edmondo Rothschild Foundation Family Philanthropy Platform, Awesome Treasures closely raises transnational leaders amongst youth and women towards an African renaissance. Awesome Treasures Foundation operates on 3 continents with initiatives impacting millions. Since 2011, she has hosted her own syndicated radio program and podcast on leadership, Voice of Change. She has been honored with numerous awards for her architecture and philanthropy. These include the Forbes Women Africa Entrepreneur of the Year 2020, the New African Businesswoman of the Year Award 2015, the Cambridge African Society Award, amongst several others. Adenowo is featured on several power lists. Recognized as one of Africa's 50 most powerful women by Forbes Women Africa, one of Africa's 100 most powerful women by WIAW, Africa's most inspiring businesswoman by the Laboratoire d'Économie de l'Afrique, amongst others. She is the opening feature in renowned art historian Agatha Toromanov's latest publication on the world's greatest female architect in history. In 2019, she was appointed a visiting professor at the Technische Universität München, Germany's leading architectural program, where she was honored as a laureate and a guest scientist at the Chair of Theory, History of Architecture and Art and Design. Her academic articles have been published by leading architectural publishing houses, and her 12 published books include her first work of fiction, which has a cult following, Beyond My Dreams, Acts of the Holy Spirit, and Women as God Intended. She is a public speaker at international summits and conferences, including McKinsey & Co. Leadership Forum, Solve at MIT, Cambridge University African Society, the Global Women's Forum, Horst de Kongs Munich, the Institute of Directors, and several other platforms. Olajumoke has served on the jury and panels of global initiatives, such as the Cartier Initiative for Women Awards. She serves on the boards of corporate entities, educational institutions, and charitable foundations. She is married to Olukorede, and they are blessed with 2 men. Ladies and gentlemen, Olajumoke.
Thank you very much. You may be seated.
Think Global. The platform is powered by the Covenant Nation.
The platform. I salute the vision of Pastor Podriemade and his beautiful wife, Toyin. I don't want to pull rank, say my daughter Toyin from this kind of platform. Thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you for this great vision and all it's been doing. Thank you for being who you are, Pastor Podju. I do appreciate you. We celebrate you. My husband and I celebrate you. What do I do when speakers like this have gone before me? The only value I can add is to tell my own story. Because I know nobody can tell my story like I can do. Right, Leke? That's the value I can add. So if we're going to look at today's topic, it is building a successful business in the climate we're in. And you ask what climate? I think it's the climate I've been rolling in since I was born. The climate where a naira was $1.60 when I first started going to America. I don't know what it is today because I'm not sure what it was before I started speaking. It might have changed while I was speaking. So I don't know what the exchange rate is, but if there was ever an interesting climate, it's a Nigerian climate. And how do you then build a successful business in such a climate as this? I would say, first, we need to understand what entrepreneurship really is. You know, we popularly believe that entrepreneurship means having the activity of setting up a business or businesses, taking on financial risk in the hope of profit.
But really, the etymology of the word, the origin of the word entrepreneurship comes from the Latin. And it actually means to swim out, to grasp, to understand, to capture. It means grappling with the needs of your generation, of society, of your community. It means solving a problem. I would attempt the French. It's entreprendre. Just for you to know, I studied French small. You know, and what it really means is solving human problems. It's beyond profit. It goes beyond profit. It's innovatively solving problems. So profit is important, because if it's not profitable, then it cannot be sustainable. But profit cannot be the motive. It must go beyond profit. When I was made New African Businesswoman of the Year, like almost 10 years ago, and I was giving a speech, I said, look, for Africans, entrepreneurship is a totally different kettle of fish. Why? Because for us, until our governments understand that the real natural resources of Africa are not the diamonds, the gold, the cobalt, the silicon, but the people in this room. When we understand that the real natural resources of Africa are the human beings of Africa, it now behoves the African entrepreneur to develop human capacity. Because the governments are not going to do it. We're the alternative government. So our offices are no longer just places for profit. They are centers for human capacity development. Our locations are not locations. They are our host communities. We must take it on ourselves to develop our continent, until those who should do so, do so. So it's not about competition or making money. A lot of the things we do in Africa, especially in Nigeria, is about making money, really. You know, it's about what is moving, what is selling. So if it's event centers, we all rush into it. That is competition and not innovation. When we're thinking of real national development, then it means understanding what the problems are and solving it. Either it is moving it or selling not, you know, until we are innovating. That's what Microsoft and all is about. I see a problem, and I want to solve it in a different way than it has ever been solved. And that is what builds nations, not red oceans of competition as we cannibalize the same market and we all do the same thing. We need to begin to think of what? Innovation. Novel ways of solving the same problems that have plagued us for so long. And then we need to ask ourselves, so what are the real problems in Nigeria? You know, I'm making this as simple as it can be because that's how I do it. You know, I can't speak plenty English, so I make it as simple as possible. Successful nations design even their national planning towards innovative problem solving. So what is the problem? Like somebody said, a whole campaign was run on corruption is the problem. And then they didn't quite solve the problem of corruption because it's more than corruption. It looks like the will to solve the problem seems to be part of the problem. So we think, when we look at it, we say, oh, it's education. Right now, ASU is on strike again. It's power supply. We saw it in the middle of Kule Shorenyo's presentation. In case we forgot, power supply. We say healthcare delivery. It's insecurity. It is national identity. We're not even too sure if we're a nation. Let's be honest. And by mistake, I said it one day on Arise TV. So I got home and I told my husband I was still asleep. I woke him up. I said, do you want to be a minister? He didn't answer. I said, if you want to be, it's finished. I've ended it. I just blew it. You know, because I have the habit of just speaking the truth, you know, and I blew it. So I said, forget it. You can't be a minister again. So what is the root, really, of all the problems? It looks like it's leadership. So many countries, successful nations, begin with the end in mind. If leadership is the problem, we should be solving the problem of how do we raise a critical mass of transformational leaders in Africa. When you think of national planning and solving problems, think about, say, India. India understood, China understood that they had to leapfrog into the next century technologically. What do? You use mathematics. Mathematics is the pillar of every technological endeavor. Therefore, they teach their children maths, not in English, so they don't have to drag Pythagoras' theorem first through Chinese, then into English, and then maybe not understand it. They just teach it in Chinese. So you grab it straight. And then you think, oh, the Chinese are better at maths. It is deliberate. It is policy-oriented. So if we want to make sure that our businesses solve problems, maybe there should be tax incentives for businesses that actually solve problems versus businesses that just compete. But you understand what I'm saying. It should be a national planning matter from the very beginning. So I started in 1994. I was going to start a business. I wanted to be a great architect. So at 25, I didn't know any better. I started a business at Unicon, and the idea was I was going to be a great architect. It took me a few months to realize that you cannot be a great anything, entrepreneur, architect, or anything, in a subpar ecosystem. It's like you are trying to jostle to be on first class or in first class in a plane that is about to crash. We're all crashing. So you are driving your Maybach that you've made from your architecture on what? On your pothole reading roads. You are in your mansion, and you garrison yourself in your mansion as if you are in a prison. The person who is in Kirikiri is better off than you because of the number of doors you have to open, because you are afraid of the people coming for you. It became very clear that you cannot be a great anything in a subpar system. So I said, I'm going to focus on the real problem, and it is leadership. I thought maybe seminal buildings will work. Let me design the buildings and show people the way it is done so we can fix the ecosystem. I realized that one person does not have enough lifetimes to build enough seminal buildings to change the situation we're in. Well, I tried different things. I went into academia. You see, I became a visiting professor. Pastor Kojo prefers to call me Doc. It's Prof, right? It's Prof. That was one thing I never thought I could beat my parents at, because both of them are professors. So when I became a professor, I said, Daddy, can you imagine? There are 3 professors in this family now. Okay, and my own is German. Yours is local. Mine is global. It's just what it is, you know. Anyway, so the answer was purpose-driven ventures. That's what it had to be. What is the purpose behind every venture that I go into? It is raising transformational leaders. It could be architecture. It could be Petra Pharma Properties. What does property have to do with leadership? Nothing. It's funding the initiative. What does Advantage Energy have to do with it? It is funding leadership initiatives. So we see that at 25, I decided to pivot from profit to purpose. Pivot from fame to purpose. It was not classy, it was not sexy, but I decided that that's what I was going to do. So whatever we do, leadership is that thread that runs through everything we do. Because I'm a polymath, so I have different expressions. But it is leadership that determines the decisions I take. Either I speak at the platform or not. It's in or out, depending on what does it have to do with raising transformational leaders. So leadership runs through everything we do, though it looks like the processes are different. The purpose remains the same always. 28 years on, 154 projects later, AD Consulting has a clear purpose linked to this raising transformational leaders, which is the problem of Africa. It's the real thing we lack. And we have decided that we must restore the confidence of a generation to solve its own problems. You see, because you cannot set a sat-nav when you have no origin and no location. You can't begin to venture forth when you don't know where you're coming from. And we have a whole generation who have subscribed to propaganda that has taught them that they don't have what it takes to solve their own problems. And Africa must evolve its own solutions. Now come with me for a minute. There's not much time, but why must I be told through propaganda, through movies, through books, through every way that I'm an inferior being? If I am inferior, leave me alone. I will find out myself. I will take it again. You don't need to tell me that I cannot fly. All I need to do is try and fly. When I crash, I will realize I cannot fly. So why must the whole educational system, a whole colonial, everything be designed to tell a race that they're inferior? It means somebody is afraid that if they are allowed to attempt it, they will discover that they're anything but inferior. Therefore I said, it shall be our own aim to tell this race that not only do you have what it takes, your ancestors have proven that they have what it takes. Therefore, you have the DNA of leadership, the DNA of problem solving. The genes are in you. We've been doing it before we came into contact with any other civilization. So in 1427, when the ancient Benin Empire, which you can see at the bottom right corner, right? That's ancient Benin. When the Portuguese first met the ancient Benin Empire, it was a civilization where they said, even they had street lights that London did not have. It is in writing that London did not have. I say this to the diaspora because a lot of our critical mass are in the diaspora, so that when the children go to school the next day, they know of what stock they're made from. They know they're not refugees, they're immigrants. There's a difference between refugees and immigrants. You know that. The refugee has no option, the immigrant has one. And your host country knows the difference between a refugee and an immigrant. You are a refugee if you have no other option but to stay in that country you are in. So, in 1427, they came across Benin Empire and they thought, oh, haphazardly, planned, but everything else is going on well. The beauty of it, the interesting fact, was that many African cities were planned according to what we call fractal geometry. So the Europeans were gazing on a level of geometry that was beyond their comprehension. So inside what they thought was an African mess was a message. It took George Cantor in 1883, 400 years later, to begin to discover, a German, what fractal geometry was about. It was 500 years later in 1975 that Mandelbrot now began to understand there's such a thing as fractal geometry. So what your ancestors used to solve their problems then is now what is at the basis of neurolinguistics, neurology, information technology, econophysics, some very highfalutin names. But this is what is found indigenously in Africa all over. And what AD Consulting does is that we leverage on our own understanding of African heritage and African architecture to design buildings in this century that are relevant globally, showing the whole world that there are ideas that come not just from now, but from antiquity in Africa, to restore the confidence of the African in the African ability to evolve its own solutions. Raising transformational leaders. Like I said, it wasn't popular at that time to say you were starting a foundation. It was more like, are you Mother Teresa doing press-ups or what? In 1994, everybody was in a bank. That was the in thing to be. And there was this barefoot philanthropist in 1999 saying to herself that, okay, I have started a purpose-driven business, but we need a critical mass. Because when you say you are leading and you're alone, you're only taking a walk. Right. So I need to be able to lead a critical mass with me. So we started Awesome Treasures Foundation in 1999, recognized by the United Nations. We've had over 125 plus global leadership summits. What is the purpose of Awesome Treasures Foundation? Raising transformational leaders. So 125 plus global summits later, it's working. It's working because when the convener of the platform, the visionary himself, the leader of the covenant nation, wanted to choose a partner to recruit in this journey to change the face of the continent, he came to an awesome youth. Is it working or is it not working? It's an applause situation. It really is working. Because when leaders are looking for leaders, they know where to go. It's what it is, isn't it? Yeah, it's what it is. We've had over 10 annual summer leadership camps. Like I said, I just like when numbers speak because words don't cook rice. Numbers have their impact. 10 annual summer leadership summit. On the right up the left corner there, you can see the girl with the interesting hairdo. Her name is Olajumoke, and she's just rounding up geology in one of the leading universities in Nigeria. It's working. We're raising transformational leaders, shifting paradigms, over 1,700 of those. We use media. Why? Media. My goodness. Subtle and consistent paradigm shifter. You don't even know you are imbibing the ideas when you are imbibing the ideas. That's what media does. So take, for instance, Beyond My Dreams. I have 12 published books. Beyond My Dreams has a cult following. Beyond the fact that I get DMs with people crying at night because they're dreaming about the protagonist. Because when I write a novel, there are bands in the mouth of the protagonist. So it's like a romance on the surface, right? And the bands, the dialogue is heavy. It shakes. But you know, really, underneath, I'm actually talking about governance, about leadership. Talking about notions that people have never engaged, not thought about. Because they were too busy carrying Birkin bags and stuff. Federalism. We're talking about a resource control. We're talking about servant leadership. So we have this totally transgenerational book that 72-year-old generals are reading, 65-year-olds are reading, 13-year-old boys, instead of playing football, this is what they're reading. I met a 13-year-old girl who had read it 11 times. I thought it was plenty, you know. But we have these ideas sinking in transgenerationally, and, you know, it's really about national branding too, national identity. Portraying Nigeria in a good light, not through rose-colored lenses. But this is a nation of good people, resourceful people who just have subpar leadership. Voice of Change, 15 million listeners every week. Podcast, broadcast. And also, of course, these are hardworking products because they're raising revenue streams for the foundation. Beyond My Dreams, I have donated to Awesome Treasures Foundation. In 1 month alone, it makes 13 million naira. These are the things that we're doing. We're talking about building a successful business in today's climate. A successful business must be purpose-driven. It might have different expressions, different processes. Use media, use summer camps, use architecture, use seminal buildings, but one thing remains. It is the purpose. The footprint speaks for itself. We're on 5 continents. South America, we're coming for you. The educational level of the Awesome Treasures, 66% of us are postgraduate, you know, level, and about 7.2% have a PhD, which is 6 times the percentage of the PhD in America. So we're a very cerebral nation. It's just what it is. Scattered over 28 industries, the very relevant and key industries where we need to intervene: health, government, science, and tech. The numbers speak, like I say, and I'll just take just one number here: 118,000 women. We're looking at, is it successful? Is it working? Does a purpose-driven business work? 118,000 women empowered through Awesome Treasures Foundation. I am not saying 118,000 men. The men too are empowered, but I will focus on the women. Why? Because when a woman is empowered, the nation is empowered. It is a fact. Don't clap yet. I'll explain why. When a man gets rich, he could buy a Bentayga or take a 3rd wife. When a woman is empowered, she sends children to school. Her brothers, sisters goes to school. She builds the community. The money rotates within the civilly profitable. So I hope that somehow someone has found some validation to follow their dreams, to solve a problem, to leave a legacy, to start early, to be a barefoot philanthropist, just to live their truth because of my simple, accessible, relatable entrepreneurial journey. Thank you very much. You've been a very good audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.